and welcome to another episode of Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorials with RealmSmith. I am your host, Jason Azevedo, and today we will be painting the awesome Fomorian miniature by WizKids. Now, this big guy is pretty awesome. He's not as large as some of the other miniatures we've been painting the last couple of weeks. I think we'll be able to finish him this episode, but a lot of people have been asking about how I paint skin and how to go by doing that. And this was a cool opportunity to paint a lot of skin on a really large miniature. So super excited for that. So starting off as usual, we've got our tools of the trade. We need the WizKids Fomorian miniature by WizKids, of course. We're using some Vallejo brushes. We've got some zeros, some number ones, some number twos, a dry brush, as well as some larger brushes for base coating. And then we have a little water pot, of course, for rinsing your brushes, paper towel for dry brushing and cleaning your brushes off, or drying your brushes off, and then, of course, a paint palette to mix some paint. We will be doing some blending today, so that'll be really helpful. When it comes to a paint list, for the skin, we'll have a heavy skin tone. We're going to layer up to a rosy flesh and then use a flesh wash on that. For all of the leathery cloth bits, we're going to use heavy sienna and some leather brown, as well as some parasite brown. For the eyes, of course, orange fire, moon yellow, and black for the pupils. And then we've got some black wash and some violet ink to make that all kind of come together and make it interesting. As well, gunmetal for the spikes on his armband, or wristband rather, that he has. A couple quick announcements before we start. Our Kickstarter went awesome. We funded 300%. We want to thank everybody who was involved in that. Beyond that, we've also now launched our surveys. So those of you who were backers, you should have your surveys in your email. If you don't, let us know. We'll make sure that you get them. As well, we've launched our pre-order store. So if you missed our Kickstarter, you still have an opportunity to go on and back us with a lot of the items that were available in our Kickstarter. As well, if you want to see Nolzur's live, this show, we will be at PAX. We will be holding Nolzur's Marvelous Tutorial Masterclasses in the Vallejo booth multiple times a day through the whole show. So if you'd like to be involved live, sit with us, paint a miniature, we will be posting on the PAX event schedule this week about information about that, regarding where to sign up and how you do all that on the day of and on the weekend of. Very excited to be at PAX. We'll also have a RealmSmith booth where we'll be selling Vallejo paints, as well as a bunch of other stuff. Want to thank, of course, D&D as usual for hosting us. They're always incredible, and it's always awesome to have them involved, as well as Vallejo for all the paint and being a sponsor of the show, as well as WizKids, who provides us these awesome miniatures on a weekly basis so that we can do what we do. All right, so starting off, we're going to start with some heavy skin tone. Now, these extra opaque paints, as you guys know mostly from Vallejo, go on basically in one coat. They've got a kind of a thicker pigment, and they're used for base coating for the most part, and laying down kind of that initial layer of color to your miniature. I was going to use a bit of a larger brush this time, but we're going to start, you know what? Yeah, I am going to do that. Use a bit of a larger brush here. I think that's what we're going to do, and then we'll go see how that goes. I always add a touch of water just to allow the paint to flow really nicely. But for this, you don't want to water it down too much, because you want that initial coat on the Fomorian to be nice and opaque. You want it to be a solid coat so that you have a decent base for the rest of your paint as you go. Now, with a large brush like this, we will base coat this skin really nice and quickly. This is a medium-sized miniature, I'd say, as far as the WizKids line goes. And I'm just going to go around here, get it into all the crevices and all of that wonderful stuff. As usual, you don't have to be too worried about getting this color onto other areas, like the kind of the loincloth and those things, because we're going to be painting those over with darker colors later. So it's not so much of an issue if you get them now. The most important thing to focus on at this point, of course, as usual, is to make sure that you have a solid base coat from which to start from. You can also see that we have the Fomorian here in the background. Again, I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to the D&D minis. I like them to look just like they do in the Monsters Manual, and so that is the color scheme that we'll be going for today. Our color scheme is going to be a bit brighter. I want to say more pink, but I want him to feel kind of raw. They're from the Underdark Fomorians, and so I would imagine that, yes, their skin may be, tougher, but they don't get a lot of sun, and the elements don't necessarily get to it. So for me, I think it's creepy if he's kind of like pinkish, but not too pink. So what we're going to do is once we've finished the base coats and some of the layering for the skin, I'm actually going to wash afterwards and then layer up from that again. I'll do an initial layer, we'll do a wash to kind of bring that all together, and then we'll layer up from there. This is getting a little too diluted. As usual, we are in the chat. I am listening and I am paying attention. So if you guys have any questions or comments, I saw already somebody did a Fomorian last week. That was the nerd, yep, started a Fomorian last week. Don't like how it's turning out, though. This will be good. Well, hopefully we'll give you a little bit of something to go home with and apply to your own Fomorian if you're not super happy with the way that yours is going right now. Want to say hi to Oso as usual. WGXG, painting over your D&D book is next level confidence. It's not next level confidence, actually. I have spatters all over the books or the the minis that I've painted, but it just adds character, I think, to the mini or to the book. I've already got spatters. Look, there's already spatters on here. But yeah, no, it's not smart if you want to keep your book pristine. That's for sure. I just like having it out for you guys so you guys can see kind of what's going on here. Okay. Make sure that you get all of the legs. You definitely want to make sure that you base coat the undercarriage. That's our gentle way of talking about what's under this loincloth here. But again, you know, if it's so hard to get a brush into, then chances are nobody's actually going to see that part of the miniature at your table. So I usually don't worry about it too much if it is very difficult to get into, and if you have to turn the miniature at all kinds of compromising angles in order to see what's going on, it's probably not as big of an issue. We're probably not going to get to the base today. If we do, I don't have paint that I've set aside, kind of a color that I wanted to do. I actually want to do kind of a stone. I figure the Underdark is like grays and kind of pales, but if we do get there, maybe we'll use some leather brown in order to finish that. But typically we don't get to the bases because I want to make sure you guys get as much goodness on the minis as possible. Okay. All right, that was that went on pretty well. It's a pretty solid base coat. Nice and quick. Remember how long it took me to base coat the Kraken last time? Quite a bit longer. If you folks don't have your paints handy, but you'd like to paint along with me while I do this, the VOD version of this video, as well as all of our other videos, are uploaded to the D&D YouTube page, the official D&D page, as well as our own RealmSmith YouTube page, which has a lot of other tutorials for terrain and all kinds of other things, as well as live streams. So you can check that out at youtube.com/RealmSmith. All right. Lots of chat today. Love it. Yes, double GXG. This mini is right out of the box. The WizKids minis come pre-primed, and so you don't have to actually prime them once you get them. You can actually paint them right out of the box. They come with primer on the actual mini itself. When you guys ask a question, just make sure you write question in caps for the question so it stands out for me as the chat kind of goes by here. What size brush is that? That is a large brush. I don't even know. It's just called a large dry brush. That one's not actually a Vallejo brush. That was just one I had that I like to use, but it's a big one. I've done a few WizKids without priming, and they've been okay. They're definitely okay, and they're even better if you hit them with a Vallejo matte varnish afterwards to make sure that none of that paint flakes off. Yeah, there you go. All right. Oh, see, but I missed some of the leg there. So you got to watch around this kind of loincloth area. It goes up into the leg, and I definitely missed a little bit of base coat. Oh, that is unfortunate. Up on the thigh here. So we just got to make sure. Now, of course, the wash usually covers some of that. It's pretty forgiving, but we don't want to make that the wash's responsibility. Make sure we have a solid base coat. Okay. All right, next, while that's drying, we'll let that base coat dry, and you can see kind of what it looks like so far. I'm going to go ahead and start base coating some of these brown areas. So I'm going to start with heavy sienna is going to be my color of choice for base coating all of kind of the cloth leather sort of areas. In the Monsters Manual, he's got some stitching on his material here, but not in here, so we don't have to worry about that too much. And we're going to base coat everything heavy sienna, just because, again, it's one of those heavy colors that kind of allow you to set up like a solid base coat for the rest of your colors to go on. But then we're going to dry brush them with different colors and highlight them with different browns so that they actually look like different textures or different materials, I should say. But we're going to use this for all of the base coating of his clothing. Sweet. Okay. And I really enjoyed doing the Kraken the last couple episodes. If you folks have bought the WizKids Kraken, the unpainted version, it is a joy to paint. It's got so many just really cool textures, and all the clear effects of the waves were really fun. We used some inks on those if you missed the last episode. Again, those will be available on our YouTube pages soon. We're a little behind, and I think D&D was a little behind on uploading those. But we should have them. I'm going to try and get it caught up on all of our VODs this week. As I know you guys ask for them often. There's a lot of folds in here, so you want to make sure that when you're painting the bottom of this loincloth area that you get into all the folds. You might want to go a little thicker on the paint. Again, not too thick because you don't want to obscure any detail. But there we go. Okay. There we go. That should be good. We're going to use a black wash as well on a lot of these areas. Get in here. Man, it's Sunday here in Canada. It is Thanksgiving weekend. It is a holiday weekend. Typically, we don't do shows on weekends, but we've missed a number of shows the last month or so. So we just wanted to make sure that we got this done for you folks. I will be going back to Thanksgiving festivities post episode. Just took a little break out of my family weekend for this because it is important to me. I think you guys' Thanksgiving is in November, I believe. The U.S. Thanksgiving. All my U.S. friends can let us know if that's the truth. Pretty sure it's November. Okay. I am getting this onto the leg a little bit, but we can kind of fix that up as we go on our first kind of layer of blending on the skin. This takes a little bit of time here, just trying to get this brown into all these crevices to make sure that, again, we have a nice solid coat on the clothing. I haven't run a Fomorian yet in any of my games. Have you guys? And if you did, what were some of the challenges? Did your PC survive? They're so creepy looking. Definitely like the most kind of vile creepy of the giant races, in my opinion. I was reading the lore on them, and it sounds like they used to be kind of a beautiful race of giants that were cursed by the Fae. That's my understanding. We'll read a little bit of that if we have some time in a bit. I like to do that just to kind of get my head into the game. The right mind space for these guys while I paint, because I'm a big geek that way. End of November is U.S. Thanksgiving. Bag of popcorn and the Joker ain't a bad idea. The Nerd YYC is saying that their Thanksgiving is a bag of popcorn. That's awesome. And the Joker. Haven't seen it yet, but I do want to see it. Or it's brilliant and terrifying all at the same time. Okay. Now, I don't mind. Now, this is coming on. It's pretty, it's providing a great base coat, but I don't mind that's coming on a little streaky, just because, again, this Fomorian lives in the Underdark. I don't think he cares too much about his garments and how they look. In fact, I'm pretty sure he doesn't wash his stuff much at all. Probably doesn't care too much. He's too upset that he's cursed. The evil eye. And their evil eye thing is pretty wild, their ability. We'll read that in a sec if we need some drying time here. The other thing you need to be watched too is I really jammed that heavy skin tone under here, so it's still a little wet, so I'm getting a bit of mix happening with the heavy sienna. Typically you just want to let this sit for like 15 minutes to let that original base coat dry maybe a little bit, so they don't bleed into each other. But we are on a time crunch, folks. Mind you, we're always done with time to spare for the most part, except for the bigger minis that I know are going to take multiple episodes. All right, so that is under the belt is done. That again is heavy sienna. You guys see that okay? The light here needs to be a bit more overhead. There we go. And then I'm just going to do around the top of it as well. And the belt. The belt is also going to be heavy sienna. We're just going to paint it all the same color and then worry about differentiating it using washes and different highlights. I may even add a little black to this to make this belt like a dark leather color, as it is in the subject matter, or in the inspiration, I should say. All right. Okay. A lot of that heavy skin tone is dry on top, so I can lightly hold on to it that way. With all these areas that do touch the skin, though, what I'm doing is I'm not jabbing right into the area. What I'm doing is allowing my brush to kind of slide into where the two sections meet, so that I'm not mucking it up too much. Like that. Perfect. Oh, got it on the skin a little bit. Again, not a huge problem because we can fix a lot of that when we're doing the first kind of layer of paint for highlights. Not worried too much about the buckle, even though that is going to be gunmetal later. Question. So you find your heavy colors, do you find your heavy colors shrink as they dry? I swear my areas are colored solid, but then get little primer pinpoints showing through. Interesting. I haven't had exactly that specific thing happen, but as it dries, you do see more imperfections. That is absolutely the case. And I think that's just because the way maybe the light refracts off the glossy paint. I don't know. The scientists out there are what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Just anyways, I bet the scientists out there are laughing that I'm using all these terms that don't make any sense scientifically. But I don't even know if refracting is something that does. But anyways, I think because it's glossy, I think sometimes it looks like it's solid, and then when it dries, you realize it's not as solid as you thought. I think that's just the nature of paint and the way that it dries. I haven't had any issues with the heavy shrinking, but that's really interesting. Keep an eye out for that and see if that's actually if that occurs for me. And then I will comment about that at a later date. All right, so that took a little longer. Again, the reason it took longer was because of all the folds. Typically, areas with a lot of texture take a little bit longer to cover. We'll do the club in the same heavy sienna. Once again, we will be differentiating all of these parts using different colored highlights and washes. That'll be our trick. Perfect. There we go. So that is the top of the club. To the bottom. This club is made of wood, it appears, so we'll keep it wood. Now that I will actually leave the wrap around the club, so the handle wrapped area, just the primed color and the heavy skin tone we have on there, just because I do want to do that solid leather brown, I think, for that area. Okay. There we go. Club is done. Got to do these armbands. Well, first we'll do the leather wrist band, kind of like an 80s rock wristband. I imagine he'd listen to some pretty heavy stuff. If he were to listen to a band, what would be his music of choice? If a Fomorian had the ability to have an iPod, am I dating myself? What would be his band of choice? I imagine like Metallica's probably too easy. Got another question here. The other question is from Oso. Any tips on bulk priming, varnishing without aerosols as the weather gets colder? Yeah, so I mean, you can use an airbrush, because typically airbrush you can do inside. If you really need to bulk airbrush a lot of stuff and you don't want to brush it on, obviously you don't want to use aerosols inside. And with the cold weather, sometimes they don't cure correctly or even work well in really cold weather. Obviously, being in Canada, we run into that issue in the winter all the time. Bay City Rollers, he has a soft side. That's good. But you know, the brush on primers are good. And if you have a garage, I mean, for me, if I'm gonna prime a lot of minis, I have a garage, and typically I just put like an area heater in there for like half an hour before I go in, and then once you know it's kind of warm, a little bit warmer in there, at least it's not frigid, then I'll do my priming in there, or sometimes I'll just take chances and try priming in the cold, but that is never, sometimes that doesn't go well, so you probably don't want to take your chance on your minis. But yeah, for me, I think brush on primer or airbrush, of course, if that is in your budget, and or if you have one, airbrushing for bulk kind of batch priming is a good solution. If again you either already have one or if it's in your budget. And frankly, for priming, if you'd ever only use an airbrush for priming, you can get a pretty affordable airbrush for that purpose. But if anybody else has any ideas, sound off in the comments on that, because that would be very helpful. So he's got these kind of like leather wraps around his shins and calf area. So I'm going to do those brown, but then he's got, what holds it all together is kind of these leather straps. I think I'm going to go ahead and use leather brown on those so that they stand out a little bit. But at first, I will base coat the rest of it in this heavy sienna. This heavy sienna is probably one of my favorite paints from Vallejo, just because the way it goes on smooth. It's a nice solid color. I use it for the base coat of almost any kind of brown, earthy texture on my miniatures. It's just a really solid base color. Really solid. Last week was a little chilly. I pre-warmed my spray cans in a bucket of lukewarm water. Interesting. Very interesting. Never tried that before. Did that work well for you? That is really cool, actually. Never considered that. I store my aerosols inside, so they're always, room temperature. So if I do it quickly, but if you're batch painting like an army or a lot of minis, batch priming, or even batch base coating with sprays, with colored sprays, Vallejo has an awesome range of colored sprays and primers. When I used to do a lot of armor kits, I would always pre-warm cans in warm water. As you spray them, the propellant cools the cans down. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it seems to have helped a lot. It was only 30 to 34 degree weather. Wow, 30 to 34 degree water. Yeah, so not cool. Yeah, not super hot. You definitely don't want to put it in like boiling water. You don't know what contents under pressure warmed would do. I'm no scientist, but I'm assuming that wouldn't be great. Put your cans in boiling water. Not suggest it. Okay. Almost done this area. This is taking a little longer, this whole process, just because there's a lot of areas where this kind of leathery color meets the skin, and you want to be careful there. Definitely want to be super careful, because we've only base coated, so you could always go back with the heavy skin tone and just touch those areas up. I'm not going to worry about them because I think they'll sort themselves out in the first kind of highlight stage, but you'll also see that down by the bay, no, kidding, down by the feet here, I've rubbed off some of that base coat with my fingers as I'm kind of twisting the mini around. Again, that'll be dealt with later. I don't have to go back and touch up every mistake as that happens. Be here all day touching up little paint rub-offs and things like that. For me, in my experience, I find that as I said before, the wash typically makes up for it. It's quite forgiving. In the kind of nooks and crannies where you've missed stuff, it'll help. It also obviously will tone the primer a little bit, so it's not going to be like that light gray. And typically, the areas that you rub paint off are typically the highest areas of that miniature, the areas that are kind of on the very kind of edge of any sort of area. So because of that, except for this massive, look at this massive light area. I don't know if you guys can see that here. The back of the leg that I forgot to paint right in there. Always happens when you're painting a miniature, you realize, oh man, I forgot this massive area. So because of that, I will go back and I will use some heavy skin tone to base that, I think. When I'm turning it upside down, I'm also seeing a lot of these light areas under. It always helps to, when you finished a base coat or an area of painting, to turn your miniature in all different sorts of angles to see if there's any primer showing. And again, now I see some primer. So because I have that large area, now I can go in and I can, with a little bit of heavy skin tone, touch that up, and then I can touch up some other areas because I'm doing it anyways. Might as well instead of wasting that paint. Yeah, it's easy to get OCD when you have little paint, that comes off, and when you get into retouching. All right, so there, I'm just gonna do the really big oopses that I did here. Just gonna touch those because otherwise it's not a big deal. There's a big oops right there. Again, I'm just once over with the heavy skin tone is enough. That's it. That's all I'm gonna do, I think. Oh, down here. There. Perfect. Okay. And the toes, which I said I wasn't going to do, but I get a little OCD as well. All right. That is done. As well, folks, I just saw the ad on our in our interface here. Check out the paint store events that WizKids, Vallejo, and RealmSmith are holding. We basically, you go to your local game store, we send the store a bunch of miniatures, and then you follow our videos with your friends at the store and paint stuff together. Really exciting, coordinated, planned, in-store painting, paint and take events. Check those out at your local store and ask about them. Coming to a store near you if it already hasn't. Okay, heavy sand is going to dry. I am now going to, I had said before I wasn't going to add a wash to the skin until I started to highlight it. I lied. I am going to do that. I'm going to add a wash to it right now. That will help me to kind of it'll show some of the definition a bit more. Wash should take a while to dry, so I want to do that as soon in the process as possible so we can move into other things as well. So, you need quite a bit of it, so that flesh wash, we're just going to, I think I'm going to use this larger brush for it. We'll see if it's too big when we get in here. We'll start with the larger brush. Yeah, you know what? Too big because I'm not able to control it as much as I'd like to. So I'm just going to wipe off that brush as much as I can. This brush has seen better days, but I think it'll be just fine. So yeah, so basically, like I've said before with washes, for me, washes you don't paint on, you kind of brush them onto the miniature and then you manipulate them to go where you'd like them to go. For me, on this miniature specifically, I want to make sure that the wash goes into all of the recesses, doesn't pool too much because we don't want it to obscure detail, but like even around here, you can see already how that wash is pooling around kind of the boils on the back. It's pretty disgusting. And already giving it a really cool 3D kind of, well, it's already 3D, but you know what I mean. It's giving it a lot of really nice depth. Like that. I think once we're done this wash, then we'll go ahead and do a wash on the heavy sienna areas, because at that point, those will be dry as well. But I've said it many times before that washes are like a liquid talent, because they do a lot of that work for you. You still have to highlight. There's no magical highlight solution yet. I'm sure Vallejo will find one eventually. But for the most part, you know, this is a quick way to do shadows. Get some really nice shadows onto your miniature quickly and easily, and then, you know, spend the time on the highlights. And as you can see with that heavy skin tone, typically the old school way to do it, even before it washes, was you would start from a really dark color and then work your highlights up until you got to your lightest. Well, nowadays you start with like a mid-tone color, and then you put a wash on it, which creates your dark shadowed tone at the base of it, and then you can work up your highlights. You can see on the front how that wash is really bringing out the detail, especially in the face. You can see all of a sudden the face pops. Getting a lot of shadow from this light. Sorry, folks. Got to get me a light on the other side. Now I'm going a little heavy on the face. Again, you want to make sure that, you know, as you work the wash in, you work it in the recesses, it's nice and thick, but then you just kind of like move it around a little bit, sop it up a little bit, make sure that your wash is not obscuring detail. Make sure that it's not pooling so much that when it dries, it's going to take away the depth that you have built into the miniature that the sculptors worked so hard to kind of work in for you. Just allow the wash to do its work and provide the depth that you need. Now it's with these washes that I typically destroy my monster manual with. So I'm just trying to be careful not to go too rough and just spray this wash everywhere. Okay. Thanks, Oso, for the link to the paint event stuff. That is exactly where you go, WizKids.com/beholder painting event. I liked when you used to put the paint color on the screen. Is that a thing of the past? It is not a thing of the past. That will start to happen again. It's just that the last couple months has been really, really busy. There's been a lot going on, especially with the Kickstarter and all of that kind of stuff. And you know, we set up a new fulfillment partner for our adventure boxes, which again you can check out at our website, RealmSmith.tv. But that took away from time that I had to do kind of some of the extra stuff. So those paint bottles will come back on the screen. I usually have a little paint bottle right here, kind of like this, that shows up and kind of stays there, a graphic. Unfortunately, I just haven't had the time, because it takes a lot of time to kind of set up all those little bottles and then to set them up in the interface here so that I can switch between them. So, and I don't have a producer on the show. I'm just kind of self-producing these days. So all of that said, that will absolutely come back. That is something that we definitely need to do, and I know is helpful for people while you're kind of following along to make sure that you know what I'm doing. I'm still using flesh wash on this, for instance. Okay, you can see now where it's starting to dry on the back. It's giving you some cool depth, but it's changed the surface color. You can see how the difference between the color on the color on the legs and the color kind of on the chest are different. Already. Kind of darkening it down. You got to keep that in mind when you're using washes. Is the color of your base coat is going to change based on what wash you use. Again, washes are designed to kind of go into the recesses, but they will change the surface color as well. Not as much as inks, but they will change the surface color. Okay, I need some more wash here. Going through lots of this flesh wash here for this Fomorian. It's got a lot of skin showing. It's in the Underdark, it doesn't matter. No room to be shy. Okay, got lots of time left, folks. Lots of time. Okay, still another hour and 40 minutes left. Hopefully we can finish this guy off in that time. We are going to do, like I said, some blending. It's not going to be wet blending because I don't really have a wet palette, and I'm not a pro when it comes to wet blending, but I will show you kind of how to build up layers of highlights using kind of watered down and mixing lighter and lighter colors. Kind of the getaway, but that's okay. You know, I've said this before on the show, and that is, you know, for me, if you're playing a war game where you have a whole army that you use every single time you play, you know, I want to spend my time, really, really spend my time to get those perfect. When it comes to the miniatures that I paint for D&D, I want them to look awesome. I want them to look impressive. I want them to look dangerous and have my players kind of gasp when they see them on the table. But I'm probably only going to use them like once a year, maybe. You know, you put a dragon on the table, your players are going to be pretty upset if he's on the table every week for every session. Of course, if it's a regular kind of NPC, kind of like the Frost Giant, which we painted, which represents Harshnag from Storm King's Thunder. Say if you're playing Storm King's Thunder, then you know, you want that if it's an ongoing or reoccurring NPC, then that's a whole other thing. You want to spend the time. They're going to be on the table more. They're going to be interacting with the players more. But for these kinds of guys, I just want to get them on the table, look impressive, and move on to the next one, because there's such a wide range of miniatures. If I spent 4 or 5 hours on every single mini that I have, that's a lot of my life. So, you know, I'm just managing kind of the value of what I want to get on the table with the time that it takes. We are going to let that dry. That is going to take a little while to dry. It's kind of cool now, obviously, because it's fall. So we are going to take a black wash now. Here, I'll pretend like these are on the screen still. Take a black wash now. Oh, there we go. And we're going to use that for all of the stuff that we painted, base coated, using the diluted a little bit, and anything that we used heavy sienna on, we're going to use a black wash on. Slightly watered down, but this is going to add all the depth we need. Now, some areas the heavy sienna has not dried. You want to be careful. Again, I'm getting through this quickly so that we can fit all of the techniques in the 2-hour period. But you definitely want to let your miniature dry in between coats. When things start to kind of bleed together, it's not good. No bueno. It's not good, unless that's what you're looking for. But the key is to make sure that you let it dry enough so that you're painting on a nice dry base coat, or washing on a nice dry base coat. And you can see already how that's going in. Now, this loincloth area is a perfect example of where dry brushing, where the combination of dry brushing and washes really brings out the depth in a miniature. Very cool. Around the front here. Almost done the belt area. And then we're going to wash this belt buckle again once we have gunmetal on there. But that'll be kind of like the last step probably. We'll be doing all of that. I will use I can see that this is all dry on the club because that was the first thing we painted. So we're going to put that black wash all over the club. Again, you can see it moving into the recesses and doing exactly what it should be doing. Question: have you had to remove dried Vallejo paint from a Nolzur's miniature? I read about guys using acetone, but they don't say what kind of plastic it's on. Yeah, I have not tried that. I know a lot of people, especially from kind of my wargaming days, they use, maybe somebody out there knows what it's called. A green, something green. Um, Shoot, it's totally skipping my brain right now. Simple Green? I think it's called Simple Green. Yeah, that's it. Simple Green. Hey, Nate. Nate's watching. He says it's Simple Green. Everyone say hi, Nate, from WASD20. Cool. I had no idea Nate was watching. That's awesome. Welcome, buddy. Yeah, it's called Simple Green. And you can use Simple Green to I haven't done that, actually, on a WizKids Mini, so I don't necessarily know how that's going to react. I'm assuming it'll have the same effect, but I am not endorsing that. He's lurking. It's okay. You're allowed, buddy. Anytime on my channel. Anytime, my friend. Anytime. Check out his channel. He's got some pretty awesome stuff. If you haven't already, it's a huge channel. Really great things. He's got this awesome map building, drawing, designing series that's super cool. And I've actually learned a lot for our adventure boxes from Nate. And he's been a RealmSmith supporter and friend for lots of time, bud. So I love Nate and what he does, and everyone go over there and follow his channel because it's awesome. There's a plug, sir. It is fun watching us both grow, man. It's nuts. You know, I spoke to Nate for the first time. Geez, I don't know, Nate. How long ago was that? 2, 3 years ago? Believe it or not, it's been that much time. Fomorian has extra polka dots now. I don't know how long it's been, but it's been, yeah, maybe 2-ish. 2 years ago, and we did some live stream stuff together where we painted minis online, and when the internet was bad and I didn't know what I was doing. Oh, good times, buddy, good times. Anyways, it's amazing the friends you make through in this industry and through what we do that kind of stick with you, and so good. Anyways, like I said, if you haven't already, check out WASD20 on YouTube. He's got some pretty awesome stuff. There's still, the wash is still wet around the wrist, so I'm just being careful when I put that on. Okay, so that's what it looks like. You can see already that everything's starting to darken a bit more already, right? We're starting to get kind of that darker tone in some of those areas. When they dry, they won't be as dark. It'll lighten up a little bit, but we're going to let those washes dry now because the next step we need dry washes for. This is what we're going to do. I am going to get my trusty fan right here. And we're going to let that kind of sit here while we read. And it's story time now at RealmSmith. And I always wonder when if people come to our channel while we're allowing things to dry using the fan, and if they think to themselves, what the heck is D&D doing? Allowing kind of like a story guide just to kind of come in. I guess we're all telling stories, but anyways. Reading for the Monsters Manual, what kind of stream is that? All right. Fomorians are challenge 8. So pretty hefty. Be careful putting them against your players, and when you actually do, unless you don't like your players, and in that case, that's not nice. He is a giant, chaotic evil. They have multi-attacks. The really cool ability that I love for Fomorian, they have this really big, nasty yellow eye that we'll be painting in a little bit. And it's called the Evil Eye. The Fomorian magically forces a creature it can see within 60 feet of it to make a DC 14 charisma saving throw. The creature takes 27 psychic damage. Ouch. On a failed save or half on a successful one. And then the Curse of the Evil. It recharges after a short or long rest, but with a stare, the Fomorian uses Evil Eye, but on a failed save, the creature is also cursed with magical deformities. While deformed, the creature has its speed halved and has disadvantage on ability checks, saving throws, and attacks based on strength or dexterity. The transformed creature can repeat the saving throw whenever it finishes long rest. Anyways, holy cow. So basically, your character magically deforms like a Fomorian does using that, and then that's pretty nasty. Yeah, so the Elves remember when the Fomorians were among the most handsome of races, possessed of brilliant minds and unrivaled magic ability. That physical perfection did not extend to their hearts, however, as lust for magic and power consumed them. Fomorians sought to conquer the Feywild and enslave its inhabitants, claiming those creatures' magic for themselves. When the Fey united to defend their realm, the Fomorians fought them and were subjected to a terrible curse. And the rest, my friends, is history. How's it going here? Mirror Image says, I reprime WizKids and prime Bones. Interesting. Yeah, I've never actually primed Bones. As long as you get as long as I get a solid base coat on a Bones model, typically I don't need to prime it. But I do know a lot of people that do. Really depends on kind of your desired result and experience with those as well. And these fans are great, folks. This would usually take a much longer time to dry than it has. And what I'm going to do though is now I'm noticing that I've got some really serious pooling here at the bottom of the loincloth. So I'm just gonna kind of brush that down because I don't want it to again pool so much that you're actually obscuring the detail there. But the club is now dry. We're getting some in here. You do have to be careful because once it's dried too much, if you pull it off, it actually pulls the whole of the base coat down. You don't want to do that off, and so it's looks kind of weird if you're not careful. There. Okay, so we're doing pretty good. I think we're gonna go ahead and start to actually. I would like typically, if this was a normal mini that I'm just trying to paint. Typically, I would dry brush all the brown. I'd put them down 15-20 minutes, let that wash dry, and then I would. This has gone a lot louder than it used to be. Lots of use, I guess. But typically, I would dry brush everything because you in case you dry brush over areas like the skin, then you can touch it up before you go, but I can carefully dry brush later because the skin is actually drying faster and we can layer over the skin first. But I really like the color of the back of that Fomorian right now. Not really coming through on camera as well, but it's really cool. Okay, first things first. I am going to do a coat of dry brush. The reason I do a coat of dry brush is it brings out. Sometimes the wash just kind of obscures some of that detail. It brings out the detail, but on large surface areas, it obscures it. So I am going to do a quick dry brush. I'm going to mix some of this rosy flesh, which is super pink, light flesh. And I could have gotten like multiple flesh colors in between. I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is I am going to take kind of a smaller dry brush, and I'm going to mix in some of this rosy flesh into the heavy skin tone so that it's just a step lighter than the actual base coat we used. Again, dry brushing, you load your brush, mix or rub most of it off on a paper towel, and then you're basically depositing dry residue over the miniature. What this is going to do is you're lightly brushing it over the detail against the grain, which means opposite of how the texture appears on the body, and this is just going to bring out those higher kind of areas again for me, and you can see it's already happening, and it'll allow me to kind of know where I want to do some of my wet blending as we go. It's a good start as we get going here, and I could honestly at this point just do a dry brush. I could just finish this whole thing with a dry brush if I wanted to. There's enough texture in here, and there isn't a lot of the area with dry brushing sometimes is that if you have a big kind of open area, you tend to, or it's possible to get streaking. It doesn't look so great. You want to do it areas that have a lot of texture, and skin typically is not like that. Well, that is not the case with this Fomorian. This Fomorian has lots of rippling muscles, so dry brushing actually is doing really cool things to it. Actually, it's working better than I thought it was going to. But I will do some wet blending because I promised you I would. Or some blending, or I should say. Blended highlights. Okay, but this is, like I said, just bringing out those colors again. You could dry brush this in successive kind of shades of this mix, getting lighter and lighter as you go, and that would be enough. You know, I mean, even now for the skin is really starting to look pretty cool. I could even get in a little closer here. There. You know, the skin is starting to look really cool. You can even see some of the highlights in the face. But, you know, I want to take it a little bit further here and show you folks a little bit of what I'm talking about. So, sticking to the kind of larger areas between where the shadows are. We don't want to go in the recesses. This is the mid-tone kind of highlight that we're doing now. We're going to take some heavy skin tone again. We've already got some rosy flesh on the palette. We are going to take our number 2 brush. Now, you're going to want to, when you're blending like this, you're definitely going to want to, and I'll bring my palette into the camera a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing here. You're going to want to make sure that this is actually waterier than a lot of your other kind of mixtures that you would use for painting, just because mostly when it's wet, it tends to blend a bit better when it's diluted. So we're going to try this tone, see how this goes, and then go from there. Now I'm going to start on an area that's fairly easy so that, you know, I'm not messing it up too much, and that would be kind of the ab area. I can already tell that that is a bit bright. You can see that it's a little light, so I'm going to actually go back in, bring in some more of that heavy skin tone into the mix that I'm using. Of course, with this, using a wet palette probably would be smart, but I do not have one handy right now, and this is kind of what we do. You will notice, though, even though it's bright like this, it is going, because it's diluted quite a bit, it is going to kind of come down in color. Now, what I have there on the other side is actually better, so I'm going to go over this with that color, and then I'm going to basically use this color in all kind of the large areas, staying away from the recesses. And I do this over the entire mini, and it looks stark right now, but as it dries, it will kind of blend a bit more than it is. Again, keeping it fairly diluted. If it's starting to run down the miniature, obviously too thin. Now we've got these muscle groups here. Bringing those out like that. Trying to feather as you come to the end of it, sticking to the center. So the center of this muscle would be obviously the brightest. We're just going to come around here on all of these kind of larger areas. Now the Fomorian muscle group isn't necessarily equal to humans, it's similar, but we're going to do our best to try and figure this out. We're just tracing out shapes that I can see kind of the ripples of that area. And you can already see on the abs how it's blending a bit better than it was. Across the clavicle here. And sorry if I use the wrong kind of anatomical terms in some areas, but around the edge of the pec. And for the pec, it doesn't have it necessarily in the miniature, but I am going to do some lines across that kind of insinuate that sort of kind of ripped muscle that appears on a pectoral. And it kind of like comes up the top and across the top and then down here. Again, it looks really kind of stark right now, but as it dries and as we continue to highlight, it'll look better for sure. Okay. And again, remember, these miniatures are seen on the table at about a foot or two. So you want to make sure that they look good at the distance that they're going to be seen at, not necessarily up close. So sometimes that means exaggerating the highlights and the colors that you're using. So I'm going to go through now, following those muscle groups. Thanks, the nerd. Off to my movie. We'll finish watching on VOD. Thanks for the Skintone episode. Of course, man. No problem. But I'm not going to explain every muscle group that I do here. I'm just going to go across and do kind of what I was doing before across the whole miniature. Now, this is a little time consuming this way. Obviously, dry brushing, you dry brush and you're gone. You're good to go. This method is going to be more time consuming. It is going to take you more time. But, you know, oftentimes you get a better result possibly from doing this. It really depends on how you like your minis to look in the end and kind of the style that you're going for. And sometimes if I don't know how a muscle group works, I just make it up. These are fantasy characters. I'm not too concerned about anatomical accuracy. None of my players are doctors, so they don't necessarily know either. And no one's going to complain about it, frankly. If you can live with it, then do it. And so you can see some cases on like sharp areas, like the elbow, for example, just using the edge of my brush rather than the tip. Right? Of course, the back here is all ripped with muscle, so I'm just going to do this just to show that muscle tone. Again, staying away from the recesses because you don't want to cover all the awesome work that these washes did. And sometimes you get a really cool natural kind of like, I say fibrous, but like you can see the brush stroke there makes it look like the end of a muscle just naturally. Like I said, when you start this process, sometimes you're like, oh man, that's so stark, it doesn't look good. But because of the dilution that you're using in the mix, that really helps to... I'm just doing the lines across the top here and then highlighting the edges. You can see that. I really enjoy doing skin for this reason. It's kind of almost like you're painting it on. Well, we are painting it on, but you know what I mean. That's what we do here, Jason. We use paint. All right. Now, see, I've already almost done the entirety of the upper torso area. I am going to put this mix on all of the boils, and then we're going to use some violet ink after to kind of make him look a bit more gross. But I'm liking the way this kind of lined approach is looking, so I'm going to do that across all the muscle groups, all the large muscle groups, because I think it breaks it up a bit more and makes it look a little more natural, like that. Turning the mini around, all different kinds of angles. Like so. All right. I think the last shoulder is the last thing I need to do here. There we go. around the neck area here. I am going to use a smaller brush to do the face, just because I want to make sure, you know, I'm catching the tight detail on the face there. The chest looks okay. I wish I had done kind of smaller lines on it, but we're getting the idea there. It's kind of working out for us. The back is looking cool. Super ripped. I'm also going to use probably a smaller brush on the hands. Let's see. Running a bit out of this mix. Mix a little bit more up. For the hands, we're going to do lines. Yeah, this is fine. Lines down. The detail on this Fomorian is really deep, which is great, because then it allows you to kind of use the edge of your brush to catch the highest portions of the sculpt. Like so. Awesome. And here, catch the knuckles. So the bones along the side, knuckle on the thumb, on the front. We're just drawing lines. Fingernail, bottom knuckle, and of course the side of the hand here. Okay, that is the upper torso and hands of the Fomorian. You can see, like I said, that the abs blended a lot better now than they did before because of the dilution of the paint. Okay. Like I said, I had some of the black wash kind of bleed off onto this leg, but what we're doing here is hiding a lot of that. So that's why I don't worry too much about mess-ups like that. On the front of the shin, on the knee. Of course, we got a calf muscle here. That's going to be ripply, as is the rest of them. And then the back of the ankle, you want to make sure that you hit the back pretty heavy, the ankle bone. And then for the toes, again, using the edge of the brush, so the side of the brush, I'm just going to do this because that's going to catch the top detail of all of those feet. You can see how cool the feet look because of it. Do the same on this side. Ankle, back of the ankle, ankle bone. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, and then just the other leg. And the first layer of, well, I just have there. And the first layer of highlights is done. How are we doing for time? Just under an hour left. I think we're going to be all right, folks. I always like to challenge myself to get these minis done. Again, unless they're a mini that I really want to spend some more time on, to get these one-off minis done within the 2-hour period that we have, just so I can show you folks that it's possible to paint a miniature to decent detail and decent quality within the 2-hour period. Because it gets a little daunting sometimes, especially for new painters who think, you know, it's going to take them hours to jump into a mini. Well, it does take hours, but you know what I mean? Hours and hours, I guess. Hours and hours and hours would be more accurate. The knee, of course the shin bone, and then the calf. Okay. Oh, inside here I haven't done any yet. There. That works. That is all the skin except for the face. Now for the face, I said I was going to use a smaller brush. I don't think I am. I'm just going to use the edge of the brush. Look at this. And I'm just basically catching the edges of all the detail for now with this initial base coat. But you can see what's happening there. I'm just using the edge of the brush, brushing it along because again, the detail is so deep. There's so much depth that you can do this sort of thing and it not totally mess up your base coat. There we go. That is a mean looking Fomorian right there. But again, you can see how the techniques we're using on the skin are working quite well. All right. Next, let's finish off the skin, make sure that that's done. I'm going to get a smaller brush. So this is a number 0 brush. And we're going to go in again. We're going to now lighten that mix. So we're going to add more of this rosy flesh. We don't want to lighten too much because we want to blend. Remember, we're trying to work up decently blended. Now, I mean, you can blend like crazy and really get kind of a gradient almost happening, like a perfect gradient. That's not me, but that's something you can do, absolutely. But now what we're going to do is within the areas that we did, within the highlights, we're going to add kind of like an edge highlight. This dude is easy after doing a dragon at the same time. Yeah, no kidding, right? Although it's funny because Zenfir, this kind of miniature with the blending actually takes a little bit longer sometimes because the dragon was all dry brushing and washing, right? Pretty much. So here we go. So this, I'm doing the same thing. I'm using the same technique for lines. I'm just being a bit more careful with it now. You see what I did there? So I'm just using a lighter color. I'm coming in, doing the same lines, just finer within the area that I already did. Adding a highlight on this side, highlight on this side, along the clavicle, and that pec is done. Its second highlight. Again, come in here, doing lines. But you can see the depth that it looks like this has muscle now and muscle definition. It's kind of a bit of a graphic kind of comic book approach. I was a comic book colorist in a past life, so a lot of this anatomy and stuff kind of comes a bit more natural to me when it comes to actually, you know, where to place the highlights and such, but it just makes sense as to where the light would hit from the top. Obviously you want it to be brightest on the top and on the sides. Again, on the abs, we're just doing solid color, solid line at the top side of that ab. And we're going to do that across the entirety of the miniature. Again, trying to keep inside like a smaller area within the highlights we've already done. On some of these longer ones, you want to focus more into the center of this long line. Center of this. In some cases, this highlight that we're doing will be the highest or the brightest highlight to some of these areas, because we're going to do one more highlight after this in other areas. But this, in most cases, will be the brightest in a given area. Sorry, folks, if I keep going off camera here. I want to be a bit more zoomed in so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. Again, lines on the bicep, so you get the fibers of the muscle. This guy's jacked and ripped. Again, I don't know if it's anatomical. I don't know if that's the way the body works. But for me, it looks right. Or at least I'm getting the effect that I want. Some on the forearm here, you definitely see edge of the forearm, and on the elbow. Not doing so much on the bottom, as you can see now, right? The bottom's not catching as much light, so I'm not really touching. I'm focusing mostly on the top of the mini. And we're still diluting a fair bit. Okay. Here we go again. Lines within the area that you've already done, and then edge highlights as well. So with this scenario, I'm going to edge highlight all along the side of this muscle group and along the side of this muscle group there, just because the top ridge of this is the highest or the closest to the light source, which would be from above in the case of this miniature. That's what I'm assuming, that the light is coming from above. So you want to make sure that all the highest areas have. Then I'm also going to do the boils because we want those to really stick out. So I'm going to, and on the spinal area here, but look how these boils now stick out. Sorry, off camera again. These boils really stick out when you add that highlight. Okay, I'm going to zoom out now and just finish the rest of the miniature in this form. Being careful not to go into the recesses, keeping it as centralized to those areas we've already done as possible. Goes on really bright and then quite quickly blends in. I'll pick out some of the vertebrae here. There we go. All right. This arm has not been done yet. So again, focusing most on the top side. You also, I mean, for the most part, that's good. Somebody said, Zenfir said, sorry, Zero666 said, you should do a Halloween episode dressed like Bob Ross. That's awesome. What about like a zombie Bob Ross? Too soon? That's funny. Okay. So I'm now going around and I'm picking out all the detail on all of the boils and the neck, the traps here on the clavicle. Boom. Yeah, people are like, that's not the clavicle. Sorry, folks, for my anatomical inaccuracies. Okay. So that is highlight 2 done on the upper torso. I'm going to do some on the knuckles here now. Like that. And as well as the knuckles on this side. That. Again, using the edge of my brush wherever I can when the detail is fine enough or delineated enough to allow for it. Okay. I don't even know if I did that arm yet with the second highlight. I don't think I did. See? Sometimes you realize you didn't do certain things you thought you did. And then toes. So those toes are really popping now. Some gnarly toes. Back of the ankle. Do a straight line down the ankle like that on this side as well. And then the ankle bone as well. There. Catch the ankle there. Perfect. All right. That is all of the upper torso. I am going to highlight the face real quick with the same mix. This time, I'm not going to do a general kind of like overbrush. I'm actually going to pick out all the different areas that I want to highlight with this number 2 brush. You can see I'm moving around. I'll zoom in a bit here. But I'm actually going to go around and like all the little divots. I'm going to accentuate those divots by hitting the high ends, the peaks, to accentuate the valleys. Kind of like life. It was deep. All right. See, in that case, I went a little too strong with it. It went right into the recess. That's not what I want. So use a brush I haven't been using. Bring that right out. Edge of the ear, edge of the jaw, top of the mouth, and the bottom lip as well. And the chin, jawbone, bridge of the nose. There we go. Okay. Imagine that's what he looks like. All right, now let me just finish up. I did say last week, folks, that we will be doing a stream tomorrow night. I should have looked at my schedule. We're not doing a live stream tomorrow night. I know it's been a couple weeks since we have. I apologize for that. The reason we're not doing a stream is because, again, it's Thanksgiving here in Canada, and a lot of our players and so on are going to be with family tomorrow night. So our guys need a break too. So unfortunately, tomorrow night there is no stream, but the plan is to be on for next Monday. So I will keep you updated. Again, things have been so busy that unfortunately sometimes things have to kind of take a bit of a backseat while you focus on making your customers happy and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, either way, we will be on regular with our streams soon as things kind of slow down a little bit. And I apologize to those of you that follow the stream and enjoy them, that we haven't been as regular with them as we have in the past, but it's been a crazy couple months, lots of travel and trade shows and Kickstarters and things like that. So we will be, as it gets colder, people want to be inside, a good reason to play D&D and all that fun stuff. Okay, second highlight on the skin is done. We are going to do one final highlight on the skin, and that is going to be straight rosy flesh. I think it might be too much of a jump, but we're about to find out. Still quite diluted. First thing we're going to do is put it right on the edge of where that's going to be anyways. Look at that. So we're just pinpricks on the edge of the knuckles, which will give it its final highlight like that. Okay. Final ones on the actual. I'm doing almost like one line in the middle or on the edge of a lot of these muscle groups, just as a final highlight, just to kind of give the idea of the kind of the brightest area of the light source. Very tip of the nose. I could go even brighter on some of these, but I feel like because it's part of the Underdark, you want it to still be kind of dirty and grimy and gross, so I don't want it to be pristine. Chin. Sorry, that was the cheekbone, not the chin. But you know, that's that. The skin on the face is looking decent at this point. Line down there, line across his shoulders. Pick out this little kind of fold in the skin around that boil. Ugh, it's gross. A couple lines here and there. Again, we're just now picking out the very edge of the detail on all this stuff. I guess the highest points of detail on this miniature for the skin. Here, and you see I'm feathering a little bit. I'll hit it and then I'll pull it across. You're not seeing that because I was off camera. I'm touching it and then pulling it across, quickly feathering it across as much as possible by lifting the brush, and hopefully you get a little bit of blending there when that happens. Bit of an advanced technique. These boils, I really want them to pop. So making sure to really accentuate those with the highest highlight color. Pop. That sounds gross. I don't really actually want them to, you know what I mean. All right. Line along the top, along the edge as well, where it would catch the light, like that. And then for the abs, same thing. A little tiny, almost like a little line, the very edge, top edge of these abs, like that. This arm I have done. This arm I have not. So we're going to do knuckles like we did over there. Half an hour, folks. It's going to be tight. It is going to be tight to get this guy done. I thought we would be flying through him. But this process, like I said, this kind of blending style is a bit more time consuming. I like the result a bit better, but it does take a little bit longer. There, you're looking good. It's getting there. That is the last highlight on that. Then I'm just going to do the toes, like so. And the back of the ankle, just a line down the center like that, where it would hit. And then the ankle bone. And done. Skin is done. That is what the skin looks like. There we go. That is the Fomorian. Now, the reason why also I chose this color, you can see that in the Monster manual, it's actually a bit more purple, kind of pink. But the reason why I use this color is because people wanted to learn how to paint skin. So I wanted to show kind of how I paint skin. So my Fomorian is a little bit more kind of human skin toned, which is okay. I am, though, now, this is the fun part. So now I'm going to go in here on the skin, because I want to make sure I cover this for you folks. I'm going to go in with some purple ink. Really going to water this down, because purple ink for Vallejo is quite thick. Lots of pigment there. We don't want a lot. But basically now we're going to go around just in, it's too much on there, just in the recesses around the boil. We're going to add some purple ink, and it's going to make it look almost like that skin is raw around there. And I think I might use some of this ink as well in some of the, you know, bigger recesses on the model. We'll see. But I just want to add a little purple ink just because it makes it look almost like it's festering a little bit. Give it a little bit of kind of the feeling that it's about to pop. It's not good. Should get that looked at. You know that when your buddy has something growing, it's not quite right, and you're like, dude, you know what? Should probably get that checked. That is this scenario. I am also going to paint some around the eyes. You can any area that you think, you know, you want to make it look a little raw, a little exposed. That's where this ink is going to go. And you don't want it to be too thick. You don't want it to look purple. It almost takes like a pink hue, which is why I'm kind of moving it around a little bit. But it really accentuates those boils. I'm actually going to paint it down the spine. If you wanted to, like if I wanted to, I could go and paint this ink all over the miniature if I wanted to have more of that purple feel now. I could do that, but I'm just being a bit more careful and deliberate about where I put this, just because I want that dynamic sort of approach to this miniature. I want it to feel, because you wouldn't notice it as much if it was just everywhere. So I'm just doing it kind of in the deepest kind of folds and recesses. And I think that will add a lot. Anywhere where like things would be like his leather would be kind of chafing and causing his skin to fester a little bit. I'm actually putting a lot more of this than I thought I wanted to, but I think it's fun. Under his pecs, here on the side, building it in here. I actually like what it's doing. All right. Good stuff. Very cool. I'm actually going to add a little bit of it just above his kind of boot area. Again, I want it to look like, and as I'm putting it on, I'm trying not to like, especially above the line of something, I'm trying not to make it a straight line. I'm trying to like stipple it on. Sorry, I'm off camera again because I'm in zoom mode. Trying to stipple it on a little bit so that it looks a little bit more natural. But I think that that's really coming along here. I will be posting final photos of the Fomorian on our Instagram and such, so keep an eye out if you'd like to see more of what it looks like closer to the end. A little bit, closer up than this. I'm also adding some of this around his wristbands here. Again, where the skin would be raw and chafed. Okay. Oh, I want to do this everywhere now. It's adding such a cool tone. But we're running out of time, folks. We're running out of time. Can't. Okay. Got to stop. All right. So I may go back in and add more of this, maybe after the fact. You can add as much or as little as you want, but I really kind of like what it's doing. All right. So now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and paint in all the leather brown areas. Let's do that. How much time we got? 25 minutes? We might be okay. Grab some leather brown. Time to turbo brush, yeah. Your point about thinking about it a foot or two away is really important. I get super focused and discouraged, and it looks exactly right. You need to remember, where these miniatures are going to be viewed from and from how far away. And, that'll really let you decide kind of on the value of painting it to a certain extent, or how much time you're really spending on those really fine details that nobody's going to see in the end. So I am painting the wrap here with leather brown. This is Vallejo leather brown. Being careful not to get it on all this wonderful work that we did with the sepia on the club like I just did. I got it over a bit. Again, using a brush that I haven't used before. Boom. Goes away. But trying not to overbrush too much and brush onto the other areas and all that. And we just did so much work on the skin. We definitely don't want to mess that up with leather brown base coat. So I'm just being as careful as I can, but as quick as I can. Again, folks, you can take your time on this a lot more than I am. Don't rush it. At the same time, you know, if you challenge yourself, hey, you know what, today I want to finish this mini in this amount of time, you know, then you start to really kind of make certain decisions with your miniatures and with your painting that you maybe wouldn't make before, but it's actually starts saving you a lot more time than you thought it would, or than you imagined. And then all of a sudden you're speed painting. I'm doing all the wraps around his ankles in this leather brown, right over the heavy sepia. Again, being careful not to get it where I want it to still be that dark brown. But there's layers of this almost tape bandage stuff, so we're going to add a sepia wash to that after. I love sepia wash. The sepia shade or sepia wash is my favorite wash in the Vallejo line. Down here, I'm not worried too much. You know, leather brown is just like a layer paint. It's just a normal color. It's not going to cover like a base coat, but that's okay because I want it to look kind of rough down here. He's walking around in this stuff. It's going to be dirty and muddled and all kinds of different colors mixing, so I'm not too worried about it looking too solid from a base coat perspective on this color here. You want to cover the skin color, but you don't have to worry about it too much, especially because we're going to wash it after. And once you wash it, again, washes are very forgiving that way. They will make up for a lot of your mistakes. Oh, geez. Just dropping the brush into all. I dropped it into the palette and it just rolled through all the colors. That's what happens when you start to move fast. You start to make more mistakes. I just want to make sure I cover everything here, folks. Okay. There. Okay, that leather brown is done there. It's done on the strap on his club and the belt. I still haven't decided exactly what we're going to do there, but we can figure that out when we get there. All right. I'm going to do a dry brush now on the heavy sienna dark colors. I've decided to use Parasite Brown because it's a bit of a warmer sort of tone. The only issue with Parasite Brown is my bottle is a little wet, or I should say like liquidy in there. So we're going to have to really wipe that off when we're dry brushing with it or over it. So again, for dry brushing, load your brush and then wipe it all off until basically you have, there we go, basically have just dry residue that you are brushing onto your miniature. Like that. This is just going to be a quick dry brush just to catch the edges of this. Again, for the dry brush here, I'm trying not to get it on the skin, but if it does, it just kind of looks like dirt. But you're getting lots of really nice kind of warm browns on this. Actually, it was a bit heavy at first, so it came out as a bit of an overbrush on some of that. But when I start my dry brush, I always start in the area that I want to have the most highlights, because your brush is always going to be the most loaded when you first start painting with a dry brush, when you first start using it. So I'll start like on the outside of here first, and then work my way around, because it's going to run out of paint as you go. Again, not too worried about getting it on. You want to be careful not to get it on surrounding skin, but not too worried if it does, because, again, it's going to look like just dirt on the Fomorian surrounding those areas. There. And that's how quickly dry brushing goes, folks. I may actually go in and paint that belt a different color so that it sticks out a bit more, maybe like a charred brown, so that it's darker, but for right now, that works just as good. There. Okay, that is all the dry brushing on the brown areas. Just going to wait for that leather brown to dry, and then we will use a sepia tone on that, sepia wash, and then we'll highlight it as well. How are we doing for time? Oh, we're good. 18 minutes. Okay, next, let's do these eyes, folks. Let's get these eyes done. We're going to go in with Orange Fire. Orange Fire is going to be our base for these bright yellow, nasty, evil eyes. I guess he only has one, it's evil eye, so... so this one, again, we're going to start in the center like we typically do with eyes. Get a little closer here. And then we are going to then work into the edges, making sure to leave some of that dark purple from the violet ink in the recesses. Like that. There we go. Okay. Nice base coat of orange. It's not super solid. We might have to do 2 coats, but we will see. That's how that looks so far. Then, coming in from the edge, again, to do this, that's just a pinprick. Got it a little bit on the eye thing there. Again, we can come in with a brush we haven't used before and try our best to get it out as much as possible. When it comes to eyes, I'm just really careful to come in. I usually come in from the side because that's the easiest, and you can see I'm resting the rest of my hand. I'm not even doing it on camera. I apologize, folks. When you rest my fingers on the miniature so that, I have added support and leverage to do the detail work, so that I'm not just doing this and shaking. Okay, so that is the Orange Fire. We're going to let that just dry real quick. I'm going to go in here and do the Gunmetal. This is Gunmetal here. This is where we get into our speed paint scenario with 15 minutes left to go. And for Gunmetal, we're just going to do it on the spikes on his wristband. Gunmetal is a darker metal anyways. Typically I would use maybe a silver and then wash it, but for this I'm just going to keep it. I'm just going to keep it this color. Don't necessarily have to wash these. There's lots of dark around it. Some of the brown is coming through. It makes it look a little rusty. I'm good with that. Now there is 2 longer spikes and then 2 shorter spikes. So just doing the shorter spikes, top and bottom. Like that. And then, of course, the buckle. When you guys paint your Fomorians, I'd love to see them. Make sure that you guys tag RealmSmith and Vallejo and WizKids in them. We'd love to see what you guys come up with. It's always so awesome to see that, if we've inspired some techniques, or if you did something differently you'd like us to see, We love seeing that stuff, so please, please share when you're done your own. I am probably going to darken that belt in the end with some charred brown, I think, because it did come out. It's just blending with the rest of it, and I think I'd like it to be a bit more. Okay, I'm going to use some rosy flesh in the mouth, on the tongue, just so it looks a bit more fleshy. Like that. It just sticks out a bit more. And then I'm going to use off-white, which is the first time we've used it tonight. And with that off-white, we're going to paint it on the teeth. Now we're going to carefully do this again. We've done all this work. Want to make sure that we're careful. We don't want to load our brush too much because we don't want it to overbrush onto other things. And you got to make sure that with this mini, there is teeth, and then there is kind of his lip is also like, his lip's got kind of boils and ridges. So you want to make sure you're not getting the actual lips, that you're getting the actual teeth. So I'm just running it along and picking out each individual tooth if I can with the edge of my brush here, because I don't want too much. I don't want it to get it onto the lips at all, but there, that works. Now those are really, really white teeth. So when we do sepia wash on the leather, we're also going to put it on the teeth, and that's just going to make it look real nasty. Okay, now that the orange is dried, we're going to go to moon yellow. Get some moon yellow on here. And then we're going to paint it into the middle, into the center of this eye, like so. Moon yellow is a lighter yellow, of course, one of the lightest in the range. We're going to paint a little bit onto the other eye as well. Okay, and we're going to just keep layering that yellow on there, and we may even use a little bit of off-white to lighten it some more, and then brush that right into the center of the eye here. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. May have to do multiple coats of that yellow, but we'll see. There. We want it to be nice and bright. The nice bright yellow that you see in the Monsters Manual. Like that. He is not happy, this guy. He's going to face a Mom could love. Only a Mom could love. Okay. Sepia shade. Yes, we did a mini beholder. Check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/RealmSmith. And we have a 4-part beholder series that you can check out. And that'll give you everything you need to paint a beholder to whatever varying degree you want. We did all kinds of effects and stuff on it, but you can just... Okay, we are using sepia wash on all the leather strapping. You can see right away. You can't see because I'm off camera. You can see right away I'm the worst at that, especially when I'm going fast. Right away how that just brings out the detail and all that. Like that. I love that color. I love this sepia wash. Maybe if I use it, oh, you know what? If I use a sepia wash on the belt, it might differentiate it enough. Look at that. Didn't think of that. It's already darkening it quite a bit. And then I could even use some more black wash and darken it even further if I wanted to be a darker belt. But this is actually working quite well. That's actually giving me what I want, which was just basically differentiation. Okay, I am going to allow the wash to go a little bit over the bandages here on the feet, just so it provides some delineation between the skin and the bandages. And that's another good thing that washes do, is they provide delineation and a break in color and shape. Just like natural shadows do. So we're going to do that. You can see the difference here between that one and that one. 10 minutes. We're good. I feel it. I feel we're good, folks. You feel it? We're going to do it. Again, I never planned to do the base anyway, so the fact that the base is raw is okay. I am going to use a heavy blue-gray on the base with a black wash on it. Maybe some browns and stuff too to kind of give it some dirt. A feel of dirt anyways. I am going to paint the nails brown. Actually, I have a little, believe it or not, I have a little heavy sepia still wet in the palette. I'm going to mix that with a little bit of leather brown, and I'm going to paint these nails like that. And paint the other ones. What I didn't do, which I said I was going to do, was use sepia on the teeth, but I will use it on these nails now. He's got a fingernail here that I'll use that on his thumb, and he's also got another one here, which should be brown and nasty. Don't think he's seeing or doing much about his nail health. Pretty sure manicures are scarce in the Underdark. Sepia wash over the nails. You can see right away it's providing delineation and shadow for each individual nail and making it look really super cool. I'm going to put a little bit on that nail and a little bit on this one too, just so we're getting. Then in the mouth, I'm actually just going to brush this into the mouth. Probably the entirety of the mouth, actually, because that tongue is a little kind of obvious, but these teeth, I want them to be yellowed. Sepia is a great way to yellow teeth. Not your own teeth, I wouldn't suggest that. So that is that, and then I'm also going to do a little sepia in the eye as well. Just around the edge. I don't want it in the middle, but just around the edge. Okay, we are laughing, folks. We are almost there. Almost there. I think the last thing is the pupil. I did kind of want a little bit more yellow, like a brighter yellow in the eye. Because right now we have yellow, but it's not super bright. So I'm just going to do like one more kind of layer of highlight in the center of the eye, like so. The other eye is good for now. Another layer of yellow. Just want that evil eye to really pop. And now it is. 6 minutes. I'm going to get out my black now and do the pupils. This is going to be fun. Fomorians look like they have like slit pupils. So that is what we're going to do. To do detail work, I don't know if what you're seeing, you can't see what I'm doing right now, but I am rolling, when I put it in my palette, I'm rolling my brush with my finger like this and along the paint so that you're getting a nice kind of tip on it. Nice fine tip. And I'm just gonna, this little eye is gonna be tough. There it is. Okay, it's gonna be good enough for that eye. And then definitely want to make sure that the black paint is flowing well. And we're just gonna do a line across the center of the eye like that. be thin-ish. There. That's a Fomorian eye. If I've ever seen one. I'm happy with that. Zenfear, I was worried, frankly, that I didn't have enough time. But it looks like I did okay. Since we have a little extra time even, man, I got 5 minutes left. I'm going to go back in, get some of this purple ink because I was enjoying that so much. And I'm just going to add it into the neck here. Almost like being clenched all the time is causing it to chafe. I'm so angry all the time. It's got to hurt, right? Okay. There. Looks cool, right? I almost want to do it in all the recesses here, which I might do. Looks very cool. That pink, that purple kind of tone. Really neat. Okay, like I said, almost looks like it's just kind of raw. Okay. Good. All right. And I think that's it, folks. I think I am happy with the way that ended up. That there is the Fomorian. One last look at our 2-hour Fomorian. I think it turned out all right. Oh, something happened to his eye, though. That's unfortunate. The center of the eye kind of scratched off. There. Let that dry before I touch it again. And that's it, folks, for the Fomorian. Thank you so much for watching again. As always, in a week from now, we will be back for another marvelous tutorial. If you guys have some ideas or thoughts of what you want us to do next, post them in comments. To see the VOD, check it out on the official D&D channel or on youtube.com/RealmSmith in the next week or so. And we will be posting videos after the fact. Again, our pledge manager is up. If you want to take part in our Kickstarter but missed it, you can head to realmsmith.tv/Kickstarter and you can get into our pledge manager from there and order things. Thank you so much, everyone. Catch us on all the socials at RealmSmith TV or YouTube and Twitch right here at /RealmSmith. Have a good one, guys. We will see you in a week. Because tomorrow there is no stream. Remember that. There is no stream tomorrow. Thanks to D&D and WizKids and Vallejo. You guys have a good weekend. And Thanksgiving for those of you that are Canadian. Have a good one.